Welcome to a new video in my home automation series. Sonoff is certainly keeping us in our toes running up to the Christmas period, because there are a bunch of new products which are getting released in this sort of like end of fall period. So just recently I reviewed this 4-button, scene switch, Zigbee switch, and I already received 3 new products, which are very similar products, but they are covering a wider area. So these are the new Duo series, or if you look at the technical name, they are called the 2GS. So I reviewed in Fusion series a switch which was called the 1GS, which was a single channel switch, and this is the 2GS. And this 2GS in my mind is here to replace the Sonoff Duo, which been around for some time. And if you compare the two, well, you can clearly see the difference. I mean, the new one has become so much smaller than the previous Duo, but it is essentially like a 2-channel switch. So I have one of them connected here. So there are 2 lights which represent, let's say, the 2 lights in the room, and then you have a 2-gang switch, and then you can operate the lights using these switches. And oh yeah, this one is configured for inching. This is why it turned off automatically. But yeah, that's how they work. And the reason we have 3 of them, which you can probably see it from the boxes, is that we have one which is a Wi-Fi and a Matter version, and then we have a Zigbee version, and we have also a special Zigbee version which doesn't require a live wire. So this is called the Duo, this is the Zigbee Duo, and this is the Zigbee Duo L. So the non-live, so the single wire version, or the no neutral version, is only available in Zigbee at this point. When I mentioned that these units are much smaller as the previous Duo, then you probably notice that they are definitely smaller, but they are not small as some of the mini series. And so this is one of the mini, I think this is a mini RBS, and which also has 2 outputs, but is specifically designed for blinds. So it has the functions for the blinds, but this is specifically designed for 2 outputs. So again, use it for lights, don't use this for blinds because it doesn't have the functions for the blinds. But you will notice that these are bigger than these mini series, and so this will not be compatible with any of the Fusion switches, where you can put one of these guys behind these new Fusion switches. But I received an email that there are some new products coming out, and I should receive some review samples in a mail probably in the next couple of weeks, and those products will be released in December. And judging from the naming convention, it looks like that there are going to be very similar products but smaller size, which will be supported for the Fusion switches. So they are going to be small enough to be placed behind the switch. So again, that's another reason you might want to just delay your purchasing decisions if you are not really sure whether you want this or a smaller one, or if you want Fusion maybe, then these products are not for you. So it's a lot of decision that you have to keep in mind. It's definitely going to stress your wallet, especially in the Christmas period, but I guess it's a bad and a good news, and well, it really depends on what you are planning to do in your smart home in the near future. And I know this video is going to be a little bit long because I'm reviewing 3 products instead of 1, but we are not really going to see any new features in this review, because these products, they inherit the same functions that we have seen from other smart switches, either the basic series or, for example, the M5 series. So they support inching, a detached relay mode, and power on state and power on state with a delay. There are very small subtle differences between each of these, so I created a simple chart that just to show how they differ. But I think in a sense the main functionality is available for all of these devices. All the Zigbee devices I tested in the eWeLink, the iHost, and also Zigbee to MQTT, and they supported in all 3 of these systems. Obviously, the Wi-Fi version is not supported in Zigbee to MQTT because it's not Zigbee, and it is not supported in the iHost using the eWeLink Docker functionality. It recognizes the device, but it says it's not supported yet, so probably it is coming soon. So if you are using the iHost, I would say that, well, if you are not making a purchase decision right now, you can wait. Otherwise, I would probably go for the Zigbee version. And again, there are some very subtle differences. For example, the loop timer and the power on state with a delay is not available in the Zigbee version. And in some of the Zigbee versions, and for example, and when it comes to the no neutral version, it is not supported in the eWeLink application, but it seems to be working in Zigbee to MQTT and iHost. So there is a little bit of discrepancy, but the reason I don't want to highlight this too much, because the functions that are not available in some of the systems, I think probably are the least used functionality, especially for these devices which are mainly designed to operate lights. And the reason I say that they mainly designed to operate lights, because if I show you the specs, if we can focus, hopefully it's mentioned there. So yeah, it shows that it's 10 amps per gang. So 10 amps is usually something which is for lights. So technically, I mean, you can put this behind a wall socket, like if you have a double wall socket, and automate two of your sockets as well. But at least in Europe, the sockets are rated for 16 amps, and this is only rated for 10 amps. Actually, it says the total 16 amps is supported, but yeah, I would rather use it for lights, because you can definitely reach 16 amps if you're using it from sockets, and it's probably better to keep it on the safe side. So let me get the unboxing out of the way so we can see how these products are behaving in each of the systems. So I'm just going to, well, this is already wired in, so I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to use these two Zigbee devices to show how they look like up close, and because so the left one is the no neutral wire version, and the right one is the regular, with neutral wire version. And the Wi-Fi model looks exactly like the right one, it just has a different color. So you can see that you have the outputs, the L1 and the L2, so those two go to the two lamps, and then you have the S1 and the S2, those are the switch connections that are connected to the switch, and on the other side of the switch that's connected to live. So L1, L2, S1, L2 is the same on all the models. Here you have two live connections which are internally connected together, and the neutral. And then on the no neutral wire version, you just have 3 live connections. And I'm going to show you the wiring diagram from the documentation, because I think it's going to be much simpler. So that's how you wire the Wi-Fi version or the Zigbee Duo, so the normal one. So you can see that live is connected to the dual connections on the left, and then neutral, and then the load is connected to L1, L2, and that's how the switch is connected. That's basically connected between live and S1 and S2. And if you have a two-way switch set up already, this is how you can connect to the S1 and the S2, and you will still maintain the two-way switching. So you don't have to do any special setup in the software, but that's the physical two-way connection, which is compatible with the Sonoff if you wire it this way. And this is the same documentation for the Dual, which looks very much similar to the previous one. Obviously there is no neutral wire, but the L1, L2, S1, S2 is connected exactly the same way. And then you have the L connections is again similar than before. So it's not really complicated. And again, in some there was a separate leaflet in the Duo L documentation, which talks about some additional instructions. It's here. So this is why it says that the load needs to be at least 3 watts, and they recommend these type of loads. It says not compatible with smart products, obviously, and color changing gradients, LED strips and stuff. But on the other hand, as you are going to see later in the video, I connected one of these indicator lights, which is definitely less than 3 watts, and it was still working. So I guess they probably write this here because if you are using a very light load, you might experience some issues. But other than that, to be honest, unless you are using a candle, LED candle sort of light, which are usually very low wattage, I mean, even the smallest LED light bulbs consume around 3 watts, so you shouldn't really have any issues. Okay, so with all these admin stuff out of the way, let me show you how these devices work. So I'm going to go through the Wi-Fi Matter version as well. So I'm going to show you how it works in the eWeLink, and also going to set it up in Google Home using the Matter integration. And then we are going to look at the regular Zigbee Duo in eWeLink, iHost, and Zigbee to MQTT. And then we will do the same for the Duo L in eWeLink, iHost, and Zigbee to MQTT. So now the 2GS is added to my eWeLink application, so let's see how it looks like and how we can control this device. So with this 2GS, we have a slightly new layout on the detail screen. So we have two buttons to control the two outputs. So you can see these LEDs come on, these indicator lights. I mean, of course, I can use the physical switch, and then the channel changes on the screen. I can turn all the channels off or all the channels on, and we have a single schedule option here. But if we go into the schedules and we press the plus menu, then we can see that we can add a schedule, which is the the regular schedules, sort of like reoccurring weekly schedules, and we can add timers. And then that timer can control both of the outputs, and we can also create a loop timer. So in the loop timer, we can say how the two channels should behave when it's either an alternate or a simple loop timer. So yeah, everything is here. So we are not really using any functionality. It's just the screen layout has changed from the previous versions. And when I go into the settings, I can see that well, yeah, I'm on the current latest version now. I can change the name of the two channels or pick a different icon. I can create a sharing and create groupings. I don't have any other 2GS that I can group with. And then the switch mode, I have the 3 different options for the different switches. I mean, this is a toggle switch, so I use the edge mode. And then I can also enable the detached switch. So if I don't want this physical switch to directly control the output, but I want to put some additional logic in between. And then we have logs, push notifications, and online alerts, and then power on state. So for each of the switchy outputs, I can specify whether on, off, or last state. And we have this new option for a flip, which is available here in the eWeLink, and it's available for the Wi-Fi version, but if I remember correctly, it's not for the Zigbee version. I can't really figure out why you would use the flip option, but maybe in scenarios it's going to be useful. And you can also specify a delay, how at one point after the startup the output state should be applied, and you can do the same for the channel 2 as well. You can specify the inching settings, whether you want the output to auto turn on or auto turn off after a specified amount of time. And then, yeah, we have the Wi-Fi option. So if I want to configure any other Wi-Fi, I can do it here. And then the Matter supported platforms are available here as well. So as far as I can see, it just has all the functions that we have seen. Probably the closest to this functionality was the Gen 5 Basic, because that had all these different options. Probably not the flip in the power on state, but I think probably this is the least useful. But every other options that we have seen, it's already available here. So at least we are not losing anything with this new board. And I know I've covered the Matter pairing, but let me do it here as well. So now I have this device configured in my eWeLink application, but let's add it to a Matter system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable Matter pairing here. And I mean, I can use the QR code, but I'm also going to copy this code that I'm going to use, in my case, Google Home, to pair this device to Google Home. So I start my Google Home application and I click plus and device, and scan the QR code, but I'm going to select setup with a pairing code instead. So I'm just going to paste the pairing code and then next and agree, and we're just going to wait until the commissioning process is completed. Okay, it took me some time to find the devices, but actually it's here. So, actually 2 devices, because Matter handles the output separately. But you can see this one here is the Matter device and the Wi-Fi smart plug. So these were the default names I got assigned. Maybe I have some other devices that I haven't renamed that have the same type of name. But if I turn this on, then you can see that the one of the output comes on, and if I do the same, then the second one comes on. And of course, if I change now to the eWeLink application, then you can see that it works like that. And probably one more important thing that I want to stress, I know that I've shown this before, but if I make any changes here in the eWeLink application, that would be applied to Matter as well. So if I set the inching on channel 1, so channel 1 is now comes on short. If I do this in the Matter application, it still turns off. So I don't have to turn it off manually. It works. And this is why I like this this is why I like this hybrid approach, because features that the Matter system or basically the Matter, let's say Google Home, doesn't support, eWeLink can support. Well, you have to switch between the two applications, but these are usually settings that you set once and probably you don't have to touch it again. So if I need a plug which automatically turns off, I mean, I could create an automation in Google Home as well, but I can, in this case, I can set the inching in eWeLink and it will apply whenever I'm operating the same device in a Matter system as well. And in editing, I realized that I forget to record one of the one of the tests, which is the eWeLink part of the Zigbee 2GS. So that's what I'm doing now. So I'm in the eWeLink application now, and you can see that the 2GS is here. So it has the same look and feel as the Wi-Fi version. So I can operate the two outputs from here. Well, you're not going to see anything because I haven't really connected any of the lights, but the user interface is almost the same, but it's still slightly different because we have separate buttons for the schedule timer and the loop timer, as opposed to having just one button. And then you can decide later when you add the options to either add a schedule timer or loop timer. So in terms of functionality, it's exactly the same. I can add a schedule, I can add a timer, and I can also add a loop timer. I'm not really sure why they have done it this way. Because yeah, I guess, I mean, you do have the real estate for both of the options, so it doesn't really matter for me, but functionality is exactly the same. And if we go into the settings, then I think we are going to notice that the settings are going to be also pretty much the same. So we have option to rename the buttons and the icons. We have the usual assign location, share, and grouping. You won't be able to, interestingly, you can group the Wi-Fi and the Zigbee version. So if you want to do grouping, make sure that you buy either just Wi-Fi version or just Zigbee versions. And we can also set the switch mode. So we have the same options as for the Wi-Fi version, and we can also control the detach. So we can detach the relay. Logs, push notification, network indicator is the same. Or power on state, we don't have the flip, but as I said, I don't really care about it. And we can also do it with the delay, which again, I find it's less useful for light switches, or probably something that we are going to use much less than as opposed to some of the like POWs or one of the high power Sonoff switches. And we also have the inching settings, which I think is good for lights. So you can configure one of the outputs to automatically turn off once you turn them on. That was the inching settings. And in the pilot features, we can turn on the turbo mode. And that pretty much concludes all the settings in the eWeLink application. So now let's see how the Zigbee version works in the iHost. So I added it to my iHost, and you can see I can see both of the channels. I can turn it on and off, and I also have access to the the turn on everything, on and off at the same time. And here I have access to the schedules, so I can add schedules here, or I can add delays. So there is no loop timer, but I haven't seen loop timer for any of the devices in the iHost. So the control is there. All the features are available, well, except the loop timer. And then if I go to the settings, I can change the device name. I can change the the display icon for the device. But then I have access to the startup options, so on, off, or last state for the so there is no toggle here. And oops, too much. And then I also have the option for the inching settings, and I can also specify the delay time. and I can also do the switch mode. I can change any of the three options for, switch 1 or the switch 2, exactly the same. And lastly, I have the option for the detach relay, and again I can do it for channel 1 or channel 2. And yeah, I can still do the turbo mode, the indicator, and the push notifications for these devices. And that's pretty much it. But again, that's all the functions that we have seen in the eWeLink application as well. So as I said in the beginning, the Zigbee version I think has probably the most comprehensive setup in Zigbee to MQTT that I've seen so far. Or maybe I haven't seen some of the devices, but yeah, Sonoff has really done everything that was sort of like required to get this working. As you can see, it acts as a router, and the correct model and everything is recognized. And I'm really impressed how they have managed to expose everything in Zigbee to MQTT. So all the features that you have seen in the eWeLink application is available here. So you can obviously turn the various outputs on and off, but then you have access to the power on behavior, and you have the on off toggle and the previous options as well. And then you can also set the external trigger mode. So this is the switch mode, and the edge pulse following on and off is available for both channel 1 and channel 2. And then you can also configure the detach mode, and then you can also configure the inching mode. So it's a you can enable it, and then you can set the timer, and here you can set whether you want the auto off or the auto on functionality. And then the same for the second channel. And you can also enable the network indicator. You can even control the turbo mode from here, and the delayed start or the delayed power on for channel 1 and 2, and then you can specify the seconds here as well. So as I said, everything. And we also have this action as well. And again, I did test it in one of the products, and if you detach the relay, where is it? So if you enable any of the detach relay options, then obviously, changing the switch is not going to change the output. But in that case, changing the switch is going to send an action. So then you can query the action and then see what got changed, like, channel 1 or the channel 2 button, or the switch has been pushed or switched, and then you can act accordingly. When setting up the Duo L, I got a little bit lazy, but at least I think you can see how the wiring works. So you can see the mains, which is coming from the plug or the switchboard, goes into the L. So it has like 3 terminals, so you can use any of them. And then the the lamp, the load is connected to the L1. So I haven't even connected to the L2, and I haven't even connected to the S1. But actually, with these very simple connection, the device works. And then you can see the neutral, the blue wire, is only connected to the lamp. And I'm going against the documentation, because the documentation says that you should be using a lamp which is at least 3 watts, and this LED indicator light is definitely not 3 watts, but it still works. And then when we look at the eWeLink application, and then we see that for the Duo L or the 2GSL, they haven't used the same visuals as the the regular Duo or the 2G or the Zigbee 2GS, because it's the old visuals. So I'm not sure. Maybe there is some difference in the internals. So maybe this new one got a new internal, which then comes with different visuals, and this somehow goes to sort of like the old internals. I'm not really sure. I haven't taken these devices apart. But regardless, it works. I can turn the channel on, and now it's on. I can also turn the channel 2 on, which doesn't have any light connected, but it works. And then on the bottom of the screen, we have all the controls for some of devices in the past. So we can create schedules, and we can also create a timer, and we can also create a loop timer. And then we have a separate button to turn both the outputs on and off. So yeah, it's again, all the features. I mean, if you compare feature-wise the Duo or the Zigbee Duo and the Zigbee Duo L, it's the same. Again, just the visuals are different. If we go into the settings, we see a little bit more, a few more, differences. So we can see that the wiring mode is no neutral. I mean, here there is no option to create a neutral wiring and a non-neutral wiring. I think this setting probably comes from some of the other devices where it is optional to either use or not use the neutral, but there is no neutral connection for this, so just ignore that part. And then we can do, assign location sharing and create groupings. So that's nothing, special about that. Push notification as well. On the power on state, we can also use the 3 different states. So the flip is not available here, but again, I'm less concerned about that. And you can do it in separately for channel 1 and channel 2. There is no delay for here. So that's probably the first difference, is there is no delay. And then you can do, you can also detach the relays. Yep, that's the same functionality for the the other duo. And that's it. We don't get inching, and then we don't get the options to specify the different switch types. So it only, supports the regular toggle switch and not push buttons. So, just keep in mind that probably comes from, how these no neutral wire option works. And so it has less functions, but definitely if you don't have a neutral wire, you don't really have a choice. So just keep in mind what you're losing and whether that's something that you can live without. So the pairing the device to the iHost completed. So you can see it's here. It's a Sonoff Mini Zigbee L. Just note that this is an end device, even though it's connected to main power. It's not a router. So these no neutral wire variants, I usually don't support the routing mode. They only support end device mode. But it still works. I can turn on, well, you don't see it, but the output just turned on, and I can do that in channel 1, channel 2. I can also create schedules. So it's the same screen as before, and I can also do delays. And then in the settings, I have a few more options. So obviously renaming it, and then I can specify the startup option here. And and I can, change the switch mode in the iHost, but not on the eWeLink application. So that's interesting. So clearly some of the options for some reason are not appearing in the eWeLink. But if the device supports it, then I'm guessing maybe this was just an oversight and they can, fix it in the next firmware update. And of course the detached is available here, but there is still no inching. So it looks like in the iHost, inching is the only option that we lose. And we have, more or less everything else. And, we can control the switch and everything works. And of course, good news is that the 2GSL is supported in Zigbee to MQTT as well. So you can see the proper, model and everything is identified. And also here it is showing up as an end device. And if we look at the exposes, we can obviously control the outputs. So I'm turning the lights on and off at the moment. I have the power on behavior, and for some reason the toggle is appearing here. But again, I find this less useful. And we also have the external trigger mode. So the switch type we can also specify for channel 1 and channel 2. We can also do the detach relay. And here, interestingly, even the power on, state delay is available as well. And we also have the actions, which I already explained in the regular model, regular Zigbee model. So yeah, I mean, it looks like an interesting mix and match of functionalities. And if everything is working here, I'm just baffled why the option is missing either in the eWeLink or in the iHost, for example, for the power on delay, because it is supported for some of the other devices. So I would assume that it's a matter of configuring that device type for the iHost or the eWeLink, just whether to show that option in the settings or not. But again, I probably have to say that for a light controller, the power on delay is probably something that you are going to use the least, because you can decide whether you want the lights to turn on and off. It's not like a high load that you have to stagger the lights to turn on if you want the lights to come on when the power goes after the power goes out. But to be honest, I think for lights it's more sensible to have the power on state to be off anyway, and then it's off, then there is no point having a delay, because it's going to be off anyway. So I'm not awfully fussed about the fact that some of the options are missing, but I just wanted to point out that there seems to be some discrepancies between, whether you use this device in the eWeLink application or the iHost or Zigbee to MQTT. But obviously the base functions are working, and that's what we really care about. And this pretty much concludes the review of these 3 Duo products. I haven't mentioned in the beginning of the video, but I'm a little bit late with this review because this was released on the 27th of November. By the time you see it, it's either going to be 28 or 29, depending on how much time it takes for me to edit the video. So there are purchasing links available in the video description. So if you want to buy any of these products, you can use these. These are affiliate links, so I get a little bit of money back from your purchases. If you are interested in new products, I think there are going to be still some new products available before the end of December. So stay tuned. But that's all for today. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you in the next one.